Start building from Elko, Nevada, and build all the way to Promontory, Utah, the end of the line. That's 240 miles away. Let's see how much money we have. $3,840,000. Not bad at all. Let's get building. Elko to Promontory. Your mission? Make it through the desert alive. Ranches. This isn't the best route east, but the ranchers will make it worth your while to have the train go through these parts. Ranches. Shipping cattle back west for these ranchers earns you a whopping $200,000. You meet a Shoshone scout who knows no English. Do you want to hire him? You sign to the guide that you wanted to fight. The Shoshone see this and ambush the camp. You're bankrupt. Some of your men are injured and the building stops. We better start over. You sign to the guide that you did not want to hire him as a scout. He and his tribe head east for the spring. Uh-oh. Looks like we're on our own. You signed to the guide that you wanted to hire him as a scout. What do you offer him? You just ask the Shoshone to gamble. He agrees. You play a shell game and win. He will guide you. All right. You just ask the Shoshone to gamble. He agrees. You play a shell game and lose. He will not guide you. Bad luck. The Shoshone agree to become your trading partners. What do you want to trade? Bad decision. You offered meat. The Shoshone is a skilled hunter and doesn't need meat from you. He turns you down. Guess we don't have a guide. Bad decision. You offered hides. The Shoshone is an excellent hunter and can get his own hides. He says no. Guess we don't have a guide. Good decision. The Shoshone accepts your money and agrees to be your guide. All right. Dry lake bed. If you build here, you'll have to bring in water or figure out a way to find it here. Dry lake bed. No surface water ahead. Do you want to bring water or find water? With all that hauling water, it would have been cheaper to find it. You lose $100,000. Dry lake bed. You find water and spend $200,000 building pipelines. You collect $300,000 in savings. Your workers strike gold. It's a bonanza. You collect $1 million. Gold! Ha! We're rich! Dry lake. There's good water and bad water here. If you build, you better have a guide show you which to drink. Dry lake. There is good water and bad water here. Without a guide, you choose to drink bad water. Lose $100,000. Dry lake. Your guide points out pictograms showing where the good water is. Which do you choose to drink from? You chose the pictogram for sickness. The water makes your men and horses sick. Work stops and you lose $100,000. Dang! I thought that water looked funny. You choose the pictogram for no water. Trying to build without water costs you so much, you go bankrupt. Company bonus. Success! You chose the pictogram for good. You collect $50,000. I hear the water is delicious. The Shoshone in this area may be willing to let your railroad build without trouble. Without a guide, you have no way to speak with the Shoshone. They attack and the battle bankrupts you. Looks like one of the workers signed the sign for war. We'll need a Shoshone guide to make it through this area. Your Shoshone guide points to the camp and draws arrows going in opposite directions. What are you going to do? The Shoshone also makes the sign for fast fire, which means train. The Shoshone sign meant war, not friends. The battle cost you everything. You go bankrupt. The Shoshone meant war. But because you didn't build here, your guide says they will trade with you. Make them an offer. Maybe they'll let us build here. There is one problem, though. We'll have to use picture writing to talk to them. The Shoshone agree to trade. You build peacefully through the region, and it only costs you $10,000. The Shoshone need your medicine and make peace. You save $10,000 in the long run. The Shoshone accept your horses. You build peacefully through the region, and it only costs you $10,000. Humboldt Wells. The most famous springs on the California Emigrant Trail. Humboldt Wells. The most famous springs on the California Emigrant Trail. You save on water and collect $100,000. The Paiute ambush your men in the wide open meadows. It cost you $100,000. We had to post guards to calm the workers. A guide would have helped warn us of the danger. Next time, we better get a guide. Your Shoshone guide crosses his index fingers and pushes them forward 2 times. What are you going to do? Hey, we were about to set up camp. Try Sarah for help. The next day, the Paiute ambush your workers. They're so scared they run off, leaving you without anyone to build the train. You're bankrupt. We should have set up camp elsewhere. By camping 2 days ahead, you avoid an ambush by the Paiutes. and save $50,000 in the bargain.
The next day the Paiute ambush your workers. They are so scared they run off, leaving you without anyone to build the train. You're bankrupt. We should have set up camp elsewhere.
Lightning strikes workers who are handling the iron rails. Men are injured and work stops, costing you $25,000. Your Shoshone guide draws the sign for lightning, then a vertical line, a dot, and a sun. What are you going to do? I don't like the sound of that. The next day, a storm hits and lightning strikes your workers. Between the injuries and the men running off, you lose $25,000. The next day, a storm hits, but your workers are safe. Company bonus, $50,000.
The next day a storm hits and lightning strikes your workers. Between the injuries and the men running off, you lose $25,000.
Warning! There are no lakes or streams ahead, so plan carefully. You'll need water. The Dream Team's been out looking for places with water. Thing is, they all disagree about where to find it. Watch now. Here's the place where Wild Bill has seen water. Good choice. Wild Bill and Tomahawk were seeing mirages. Company bonus for not wasting time, $25,000. Watch now. Here's the place where Tomahawk has seen water. Mirage. There is no water here. It was only a mirage. Backtracking to supply your workers and trains with water cost you $100,000. Toano, Nevada. 5,970 feet above sea level on the eastern slopes of the Pequot Mountains lies Toano. Elko. Building starts from this boomtown on a cold February 8, 1869. 240 miles to Promontory, and you're done. Promontory, Utah. Make it to Promontory, and you've won the race. Promontory, Utah. Congratulations! You've made it all the way to the end. Pilot Peak. The springs at the base of Pilot Peak are the last place to stock up on water for 90 miles. Pilot Peak. Pilot Peak is the last place to stock up on water for 90 miles. You need 800 gallons of water per mile. Good choice. You brought just enough water for your men. That water will come in handy in that desert. Bad choice. 720,000 gallons is more than 500,000 gallons too much. You're bankrupt. Bad choice. 7,200 gallons is over 60,000 gallons too little. You're bankrupt. Our men collapsed in the heat, and the trains won't go anywhere. Terrace. Terrace is the biggest little city between here and Promontory. Terrace. Terrace is the biggest little city between here and Promontory. You stock up on water and save $100,000.
ISLAND is less than P is greater than many of the is less than 1 is greater than islands is less than is greater than in the Great Salt Lake appear and disappear as the water of lake rises and falls.
These salt flats have high winds and no water, except in the winter. High winds across the salt flats destroy your worker camps. Cost to rebuild? $25,000. Those winds blew the tents clear to Nevada. Nearly blew away the workers, too. Building across this part of the salt flats turns out to be easy because there are no hills. You make record time. Company bonus, $50,000. We made record time, thank you very much. Big storms flood the salt flats and wash out the tracks. It's $100,000 to rebuild. It was a wall of water just coming across the flats with nothing to stop it. There's an accident on the train tracks. Getting more water costs you $50,000. Our water supplies spill out over the salt flats. That was the most expensive cup of water ever spilled. Great Salt Lake Desert. There's a rumor that these 80 miles of waterless salt flats can be successfully crossed. Great Salt Lake Desert. Going through the desert turns out to be tougher than you thought. With no water, no supplies, and no luck, you go bankrupt. We were so close. Great Salt Lake Desert. Rattlesnake bites sicken most of your workers. You lose $100,000. The desert is a dangerous place. Great Salt Lake Desert. Hauling water and supplies through this part of the desert costs you $100,000. It's tough working in this heat. Great Salt Lake Desert. Your workers are sick of building in a desert and many run off to work in the mines in Nevada. Lose $100,000. Hey, come back here! Dry lake bed. This dry lake has some rushes growing at its north end. Dry lake bed. A flash flood in this dry lake wipes out a month's work. You lose $150,000. Nitroglycerin was an inexpensive way to cut through this area. Nice going. Danger. Nitroglycerin explosion injures workers. Construction stops for safety inspection. you lose $50,000. Good choice! The blasting powder was all you needed here. Nice going! Blasting powder did the trick. These hills are steep, but not steep enough for tunnels. You lose $100,000. That's like blasting an anthill with a bomb. The Great Salt Lake. Great Salt Lake has no fish in it, and it has a smooth, calm surface most of the time. Bridge collapses. The Great Salt Lake is too wide for a deck bridge. We might as well throw our money in the lake. Bridge collapses. The Great Salt Lake is too wide for a wood trestle bridge. That's like building an elephant cage out of a shoebox. Bridge collapses. The Great Salt Lake is too wide for an iron trestle bridge. That's like trying to hit the moon with a rock. The desert, home of snakes, scorpions, and sand. Or is it all a mirage? The Dream Team has scoped out the situation. Better check in with them. He can help us through this region, but we'll have to use sign language to communicate with him. Sarah can help. Click on her camera. Sarah has a Shoshone phrase book if you need it. Then again, maybe they won't. Humboldt Wells, the most famous springs on the California Emigrant Trail. You save on water and collect $100,000. It's all desert from here on in.
No dialogue written.
How much does that come out to anyway? Dream Team? Sounds good, but my mama always told me not to listen to rumors. The water in the Great Salt Lake is 6.5 times more dense than ocean water. That means you can't sink in it no matter how hard you try. Desert regions receive little or no rain. They can be blindingly hot during the day and bitterly cold at night. Powerful and colorful cattle ranchers rule over the Nevada range like kings. One of them, L.R. Broadhorns Bradley, was Nevada's second governor and its first cowboy governor. Before Europeans came to America, about 60,000 Shoshone lived here. That's all changing now. The U.S. signed treaties with the Shoshone in 1863 that allowed for homesteads, railroads, mining, and timber activities. Some say the Shoshone didn't know what they were getting themselves into. To bring water with you, you'll have to haul it in big barrels on train cars. It could get expensive. To find water, have your engineers cut into the sides of the nearby mountains. If they find a freshwater spring, they can bring water in long pipes to the track bed. Pictograms are picture writing that can be found on rocks, teepees, even trees. They can be used for warnings, or just to say that someone was there. The U.S. dealt with the Shoshone people by dividing them into 5 groups. They signed treaties with each group in 1863. The 5 groups were the Western, Eastern, Northwestern, Lemhi, and Goshute. These springs, which are marshy spots and small ponds of water in the meadows, are the Humboldt Wells. Travelers have been stopping to rest here for decades. A mirage is an optical illusion where a person sees a body of water or an object that isn't there. Elko is now the center of all gold production in the country. It's also fast becoming the center for Nevada's huge range livestock empire. A promontory like this one is a big piece of land overlooking or projecting into a lowland. Kit Carson, who was a famous expedition guide, found springs at the bottom of this mountain. The town of nearly 1,000 people has got a roundhouse, a machine shop, and all sorts of businesses. It also has plenty of water.
Any land smaller than a continent that is completely surrounded by water is called an island. Is less than 2 is greater than Antelope Island is less than is greater than is the most interesting island here.
These salt flats used to be a lake way back during the last ice age, about 15,000 years ago. You can see where the different shorelines were as the lake got smaller and smaller. John C. Fremont, a famous explorer, crossed the desert in 1845. So did the mountain man Jim Clyman. Lots of other folks tried and were never heard from again. Over thousands of years, lakes can come and go. Some disappear because of a change in the weather, others because of erosion. The lake is actually what's left of Lake Bonneville, which covered 20,000 square miles of land in Utah, Nevada, and Idaho between 10,000 and 30,000 years ago. Many Shoshone do speak some English, but this scout does not. The Shoshone language is very different from English. That's led to trouble because the government's treaties with the Shoshone use some words that didn't even exist in their language. To find water, have your engineers cut into the sides of the nearby mountains. If they find a freshwater spring, they can bring water in long pipes to the track bed. A treaty is an agreement between 2 groups of people or governments. The Shoshone agreed to allow mining, logging, and the railroad on their land. The Shoshone say that when they signed the treaty, They didn't imagine so many people would come and live on their land. They have a point. Between 1845 and 1870, hundreds of wagons each year stopped here on the way through the Humboldt Valley. You can see wagon wheel tracks winding down to the springs from the north. A mirage happens when the ground gets so hot it makes a layer of super hot air just above it. Light passes through the cooler air above, hits the super hot air, and bounces off, just like light reflecting off a lake. Your eye sees the reflection and thinks there must be a lake there.
Powerful and colorful cattle ranchers like L.R. Broadhurst Bradley ruled over the Nevada range like kings. Bradley was Nevada's second governor and its first cowboy governor.
This promontory is 10 miles long, 1,500 feet high, and terribly windy. The springs Kit Carson found are the last fresh water for almost 100 miles. For the immigrants heading west, it was the first fresh water for almost 100 miles. That's why the mountain is called Pilot's Peak. It helped pilot the immigrants toward water.
Fielding Care built a livestock ranch on Antelope Island in 1848.
The salt surface contains potassium, magnesium, lithium, and sodium chloride. Sodium chloride's the scientific name for common table salt. Rushes are tall grass-like plants that often have hollow stems. They grow in places where there's plenty of water, at least for part of the year. The Shoshone use these rushes to make baskets and mats. The lake is 92 miles long and 48 miles wide. It's so salty because the hot desert sun evaporates so much of its water, leaving the salt behind. Desert regions are harsh, but folks still live in them. There's evidence that people have lived in the Utah desert for 10,000 years.
Not all deserts are hot, you know. Cold deserts, which are so icy that they never get any rain, cover 1/6 of the Earth's surface. Hot deserts like this one cover 1/5. Forget about it. If they want to ship their cattle, they can bring them to us. No sense changing the route so some ranchers don't have to get their boots dusty. You put your hand out, palm down. Then you swing it to the right and turn it over so your palm's facing up. I reckon that's the sign to use. No? That was the sign for no? I thought that was the sign for help us out, we're lost. I'm telling you, if we become their Tatakanti, we'll have ourselves a guide. You pinch the loose skin on the back of your left hand with your right thumb and index finger. They'll want that for sure. I guess they want something they don't have already. For $100,000, we can set ourselves up to bring water in from Elko. It's a lot of money, but it's a heck of a lot more certain than hunting for water in a desert. Faster, too. Well, shoot! How was I supposed to know there was water under some mountain? 2 wavy lines with an X over them. I think this is the one we want. X marks the spot, right? They ought to teach these pictogram things in school. 2 arrows pointing at each other? That's a sign for war. We better get out of here fast. We draw some flowers on the ground. That's the sign for something that'll make this situation better. He's saying we should move on and camp after 2 days' travel. Let's go. It pays to study. Wonder how you say Calamity Jane deserves a fat reward in sign language. Lightning? With all these metal rails around, that could be dangerous. Let's find a low place and wait for the storm to pass. In a lightning storm, it's best to keep low and stay away from metal. I'm telling you, the only water in these parts is what you see on the map. The Nevada government just decided to build a university. Elko wanted it, so they gave land to the state for free, plus another $20,000. Sure enough, they're going to build the University of Nevada here in the next 5 years. For folks heading through the Great Salt Lake Desert on the wagon train, Pilot Peak was a sight for sore eyes. If you made it here, you were through the desert. Well, you carry the 7 plus the... 90 miles at 800 gallons per mile is 720,000 gallons. My mama always told me more is better. But then I guess she also told me to double-check my multiplication. I heard there's a house out on the Antelope Island that's one of the oldest homes built by settlers in the state of Utah. Well, it's flat. If we can make it across, it'll be easy building. Not much water around here, though. You know you're working hard when working in a mine sounds easy. Being underwater made the ground here nice and flat. So easy to build, I reckon you just throw a few rails on the ground and the train will build itself. Gambling the whole railroad on 3 shells and a pebble? Sounds like Wild Bill's got rocks in his head. It usually rains less than 10 inches per year in the desert, and that's what keeps the plant life down to a minimum. With few plants around to grab onto the earth with their roots, the wind blows the sand into large dunes like these. These ranchers are rounding up their cattle. They want us to build the railroad on their side of the Humboldt so they can have easy access to the trains. Here is a bit of sign language to help you out. The Shoshone hunt and gather in the summer and camp out by water holes during the dry winters. In the spring and fall, the family groups get together for religious ceremonies. Here are some Shoshone words I've learned. Hope they help. I learned them when I met some women gathering firewood and tinder. That's awful hard work, especially in winter. They also butcher the buffalo the hunters kill to make shields, drums, and bowstrings. About 250,000 people went west between 1840 and 1860, and more than 200,000 of them came along the Humboldt River. Only time in history more folks have moved is when there was a war on. The locals haul water by dragging barrels across the ground. At least we have train cars we can use. If we decide to bring in water, that is. The Rubies include 10 peaks above 10,000 feet, including the 11,387-foot Ruby Dome. They also have more than 24 alpine lakes. Here are some pictograms I've seen the tribes use. Some of them are thousands of years old. Here's a rare shot I was able to get of a very special animal skin. The pictures show the history of Shoshone Chief Washaki's different battles. Track laying in the desert is good in some ways, bad in others. The land's flat, so there's no blasting to do, but water for the men and steam engines is hard to come by. We'll need a 14-stall roundhouse and a monster snowplow here because the mountains are so snowy. With all this snow, they'll be digging the trains out all the time. This Civil War veteran's looking for a homestead. After the war, the government couldn't pay all the soldiers, so they gave them land in the West instead of money. By next year, the population will climb to 2,000. Here it is, our final destination. Plans are brewing in Terrace for an 8-track switchyard, along with hotels, a saloon justice of the peace, and a library bathhouse. Just think, you'll be able to get a drink when you're in the courthouse and take a bath while you're in the library. Rushes growing in a dry lake bed? There must be water in this lake bed sometime, or they wouldn't be here.
You can see some funny-looking rocks around here. The wind blows the sand at them so hard, they change shape. In these parts, whatever the ranchers say goes. Might be a good idea to keep them happy. You point at your shoulder with your right hand, then move your hand down while you close your index finger over your thumb. Looks kind of like a man nodding his head. That's the right sign for us. Doesn't matter where you are, a little ohapui will get you a long way. I say we give it to the Shoshone. Here's what you do. You make a level circle with your thumb and index finger. That's what they want. Money's the one thing most folks understand in any language. For $200,000, we can find water. I've spent time in the mountains round here, and I reckon there's water under 'em. If we find it and dig us a well, we'll be set forever. I had a good feeling about those mountains. Of course, I got a good feeling about almost all mountains. This here picture of a line with a dot over it, that's the one to pick if you don't want a bunch of sick men. A mountain man has to know good water. You draw a square without the bottom line, and that'll get us where we want to go. A few good horses buys more than a heap of gold. I reckon he means to tell us we can camp here as long as we like. Guess I better brush up on my sign language. I'm getting a little rusty. I say we get another day of work in. Little bit of wet never hurt no one. Well, I guess the rain didn't hurt nobody, but that lightning packs a wallop. I saw a place out there where the water was just shimmering in the sand. I say we head there. I'll show you. The Chinese workers have taken a shine to Elko. They're growing gardens and planting the first water system here. It's a reservoir with a ditch to move the water 8 to 10 miles. My maths are rusty, but I reckon 90 miles at 800 gallons per mile is just about 7,200 gallons. You know, when we were leaving to go to the desert, I kept thinking I forgot something. Guess it was them 60,000 gallons of water. There's not so much as a big rock in the way for miles across these flats. I don't like the sound of those winds, though. I ain't afraid of some big pile of salt. We'll make it. Rattlesnakes, huh? They're good eating, you know. Tastes kind of like chicken. I saw them rushes at the north end of the lake bed. Must be water here sometime. Rushes don't grow on just hot air and sand. Heard a bunch of folks talking about some whales in the lake that swim to the Pacific Ocean in an underground tunnel. That's the biggest load of foo-for-ah I ever heard. Make a circle. Find water. A line with a dot above. Draw a broken square.
You show me a place that gets less than 10 inches of rain a year, and I'll show you a desert. We'll be building 2 bridges if we head up here, but I say it's worth it. Think of the money we'll make moving those cows. You take your fists and you move them back and forth a few times. That'll send the right message. Fight? I didn't mean to say fight. I could have sworn that was a sign for let's play some cards. This is the only Shoshone I know, but it's enough. Tiv Hakwa. It's the magic word. I'm on a roll. Let's see if they'll play again. Maybe I can get us 2 scouts. Hey, come back here. Let's play again, double or nothing. Oh, heck. You slide your right hand across your left palm a few times. It's an offer they can't refuse. Well, I'll be. In all my life, I ain't never seen a man turn down a hot, juicy steak. All around here, there's old, bleached bones of dead cows and horses who died from heat and exhaustion. Feels more like a graveyard than a lake bed. A pictogram with the swirly lines whose ends don't connect? That means good water. I ain't feeling so good. I think there was something crawling around in that water I drank. 2 arrows pointing at each other. That means friends. If we build here, I bet they'll help us lay tracks. Draw an X on the ground, and that'll show 'em we mean business. Trading's the best way. You win over a man's wallet, and his head'll follow. Does Shoshone use wallets? He pushed his fingers forward twice, see? That means we're supposed to camp here for a couple of days. Oh, that sign language gives me a headache. What's that guide going on about? So there was a storm in this area yesterday. Let's build. That guide meant there was going to be a storm tomorrow. Well, why didn't he say so? I've scouted from here to the Great Salt Lake, and I saw 3 beautiful little oases that we can hit along the way. We'll be fine. Elko's home to near 5,000 folks these days. There's tons of freight, and a whole mess of passengers moving over the stage line roads to the mines north and south of here. They say Kit Carson guided Fremont's group across the Salt Desert by sending smoke signals from the top of the mountain. That's why Fremont called it Pilot's Peak. Now, let's see. 90 miles and 800 gallons of water per mile. By my figuring, that's 72,000 gallons of water. I had a dream once that one day there'll be a machine that can do math even faster than I can. No, that's impossible. Out on Antelope Island, there's a house built of homemade bricks and stuff from around the island. I hear it belongs to a man named Gar. I tasted a bit of that white rock, and it's salt, all right. Tons and tons of salt. Now, if we get ourselves about 1 million steaks to go with it, we got ourselves a meal. Maybe we should find an easier way, one with a saloon, maybe a few beds. The thing about a salt flat is there's no place to put your feet up. Rattlesnakes? From now on, I'm wearing 2 sets of boots. A dry lake? Now I've seen everything. What's next? A flat mountain? The early settlers said there was a whirlpool in the middle of the lake that trapped boaters. They say it ain't true, but I'm still not going swimming.